I believe we're here on this planet to grow and evolve. And as part of that growth process and having that belief mechanism in your mind and your being is that you just throw it out there. Something good is going to happen.
So Glenn, we hear this term growth mindset a lot now. It's become sort of part of the popular vernacular, especially for education. How can people develop, well, first of all, what is growth mindset and how can people better develop it?
Growth mindset is a term coined by a researcher named Carol Dweck, who did a series of experiments measuring how much people believed that they could learn. That's it. And it was one simple belief, the belief that this experience could learn, that I could learn and improve based on what happens to me. And the degree to which people believed they could grow into challenges, that they could grow from what happens to them, and that they were not set in stone, that they were moldable, that they were growing and evolving and changing, the degree to which they believed in that predicted all kinds of important outcomes. So she coined the term growth mindset and published a host of really interesting papers. And we're lucky that it's filtered into the common vernacular. There are other terms that I won't mention as much that you hear a lot that I don't think are as good, but I think growth mindset is a really, really great concept. I think it's got great evidence behind it. I think it's very simple and I think people can take away from it. So just to reiterate, it's the belief that we can grow in response to what happens, that we can learn and achieve, and that striving is the way to do that.
Okay. So how do we incorporate that sort of way of thinking into our life, or maybe if we're trying to teach our kids to do the same thing, what are very simple practical things we can do to work on our growth mindset?
Yeah, so I'd have a rhyme: name it to tame it. So name it to tame it. So look for the opportunities where maybe we feel like we've got a fixed mindset. Now, a fixed mindset is the inverse of a growth mindset. The inverse is that our abilities and what happens to us is innate, that we can't develop skills, that we are smart or we're not. You have it or you don't. How often have you heard that? You hear that all the time for entrepreneurs. Right. All the time. We hear, well, you either got it or you don't. Yeah. I was on a call once, we're talking about depression and suicide risk in entrepreneurs. This was at an academic conference, and one of the commentators said, well, maybe some people shouldn't try being entrepreneurs because it's brutal. Right. And that's a fixed mindset. So when I say name it to tame it, learn to name growth or fixed moments in our life, to say, that's just the way it is. Nope, that's a fixed mindset. Right. Name it. So the growth mindset development process involves looking for opportunities to grow and incorporating that belief that challenge is the way to do it, that unlocking potential, not my favorite term, by the way, but that unlocking potential comes from steadily improving and looking at what happens to us as an impetus and reason and ingredient for change.
Yeah, I love to tell Paul's story because it's an example of what you just described. When he started at SC, the quarterback was a guy named Vince Evans, who was a supremely athletic dude. And Paul knew he wasn't as athletic as him. And his growth mindset, which I think is great, is he found his way to be a great quarterback. And it wasn't being Vince Evans, it was being Paul McDonald. So he kind of figured out, as you said, named the problem, tamed it, and the taming of it was being his own best self, not trying to emulate what the other guy's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, you must have seen this a ton in your career.
Oh yeah. No, it's
How did you develop growth mindset? Or have you struggled with fixed mindset? Like, how have you gone back there? So I've talked about the science and some of the implications. Like, how did you do it? I mean, in a practical sense.
I think, and there's a chapter in the book, Play to Your Strengths. I think I've done that in my life, and I came into USC as a pre-dental major. I have no idea why I selected that, but I did. And I was in second semester inorganic chemistry, and I didn't know anything was going on for the first 2 weeks. Nothing. And next to me was the guy who was the smartest guy that I knew. I asked him, and he said, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. And so I went and changed my major to business. And that worked out. That worked out fine. So I think being confident enough to make changes, and so I've had multiple experiences in life. And when I started broadcasting at SC, I had no idea what I was doing. And 1998 was my first year doing it. I did it with Lee Hamilton. I had no clue. No one told me a thing. But I walked in that booth and I took the risk, and people were going to be listening to me. And the risk of like, get that guy off the air. But I kept doing it. I enjoyed it. I kept doing it. I got better and better and better. And that comes through trial and error. That comes through being confident enough to take those risks. And when you are confident enough to take those risks, good things are going to come from it.
Yeah. How else are you going to get other things to happen apart from doing different actions? I want to return. So for your chemistry thing, I also want to highlight, if it were really important, if you really were built, you could have learned that stuff if you wanted to.
Yes.
So developmentally, like, I was all over the board. I was a terrible student. I hated school. I hated school pretty much until my junior or senior year of college. And I was always a highly inquisitive, highly energetic, kid. And a lot of teachers just absolutely hated me. And I had one teacher named Miss Semino, it's a perfect name, who just insisted I was just an ordinary kid, right? And so she was telling me all the time, like, you're just not that smart, right? So a fourth grader.
As a fourth grader?
Telling a fourth grader,
wow.
You're just not that smart,
wow.
right? And so what do you do with your worldview? Well, I don't need to be the most gifted and smart person. I work my butt off. That's why I'm here.
Hey, people, he's a neuroscientist, by the way. This guy's a neuroscientist. Yeah. Go ahead, continue with your story.
I mean, I won school. I won. Like, there's no more. I won. I made it. I beat the boss level.
Totally.
Right.
Big time.
But that belief stayed with me a lot. That, especially math. She's like, just don't do the easiest math you can get. And
wow.
It stuck with me.
Yeah.
Until college, and I was taking remedial math, and finally I had a teacher say, Glenn, it's not going to make sense at first. You've got to practice. Right. You just learn the basics. You just got to go back, learn the basics, and practice, and just spend time looking at numbers. And I got better little by little, and finally she's like, you could do any math you want to do. You're fine. And I was like, oh. And it started to click, and I started to memorize things. I started to do the pattern recognition and speak the language of math and go, and that's all it is like, oh, I start to feel how things go, and went on to become a fairly decent like data scientist and programmer. And because I changed my belief that like, oh, I can learn this stuff. Yeah. I'm not stuck. And the research is really clear. Like, this whole right-left brain thing is mostly myth. Now, it can define certain aspects of personality. Some people do love numbers intrinsically, and some love art intrinsically, of course. Mm-hmm. But everybody's using all their brain all the time, okay? So it's this belief that you're born to be a math person or not is totally wrong.
But the teacher planted that in you.
Absolutely.
Such that you believed it because
right.
She was a superior, she was a teacher.
Yeah.
And so she must have known what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And so you believed it. So when I was at SC, I wasn't very fast, still not really fast. But John Robinson wanted me to get faster as a head coach, so he put me with the track coach.
Right.
And I started running track with this guy, and assistant track coach. And, I thought I was doing okay. I didn't know. And after like 3 or 4 sessions with him, he said, we don't need to do this anymore. You're fast enough. You just don't believe you're fast. I'm like, really? That's it? Is that all it is?
Yeah.
and I went out and ran. I probably took 2 to 3/10 of a second off my 40 time by doing that. Yeah. And a lot of that had to do with this guy just telling me, you just need to believe you are. You're fast enough.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of everyone else listening to everyone else saying, you're not fast at all, man. You're slow and you're not fast. So I had one guy that believed in me, right. And I believed what he said, right. And so therefore I changed my opinion of myself.
Yep. Don't you just wish like we could bottle that across the whole globe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Of like, this problem is solvable.
Yes.
Right? Like this thing is doable. Like you can change how you approach things, right? Like you can learn the best way to do it. You know, in Carol Dweck's research, so much of it is just simple priming. I mean, simple priming. Simply telling a student, boy, you're really smart, or boy, you must work really hard, really determined how far along that student went. It determined what they achieved. The students who heard, oh, I'm smart, they felt good maybe in that moment. They felt like, yeah, cool, I'm smart, right? But they quit when things got hard. Like, well, that's as smart as I am. I guess that's it. Right. Versus students who hear, you're a hard worker, that made all the difference, and those students achieved at a far greater level.
Wow.
You know, I had a mentor when I was first learning to restore cars. I was my best friend's dad. And my parents, we didn't have much structure. We were kind of all over the place. And so I was kind of left to my own devices out there in the world. And loving parents, you know, good parents, but just not a lot of structure. And so my friend's dad was a really regimented, fundamentals of life kind of guy. He was a fire chief, and he just believed you wake up early, you work your butt off, you come home, you support your family, you don't do fancy dance moves, you just make it work. And it was the first person I'd ever heard say that. And I remember we were working, we were building a shed, and so we're framing and cutting the lumber, and I literally didn't know how to read a tape measure at the beginning of the day. And so he just said, he was like, what? You don't? He's like, all right. So he laughed a little, made fun of me for a second. And he said, come here, you're going to learn. And so we sat with the tape measure and the chop saw, and he showed me how to do it. And I was like, from that day, I totally flying around and doing fractions, doing all this stuff. And at the end of the day, he said, you know, Glenn, like, you're a hard worker. And it was like one of the first times I'd ever heard somebody tell me, you're a hard worker. And I still remember it. So 4 words, you're a hard worker. And I still think back to Scott telling me that. It was really inspiring. The next day I came back and was like, we built the shed, we built cars, just because somebody I respected deeply, somebody I loved and cared for me, said, you're a hard worker. And that I carry with me. I still think about that exact moment all the time, right? So that just shows that simple switch from I'm stuck, I don't know how to do this, to no, I can work hard and make this better. Immensely powerful words.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean, if you enjoy it, please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe, and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages, from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
forgot about that.
Forgot that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.